Looks fine. You popping.
Oh, shoot.
That's fine. Guess it's booming. Guess it's booming. Guess
What
it's
is going on here?
booming. So I'm waiting on the cue. These are new mics, aren't they?
Yeah.
They look nice. Is this on your behalf?
No.
Oh, okay. You sure?
No.
Oh, okay.
What? This thing ain't working.
What's wrong with it? What are you trying to do?
It's not. It keeps moving.
Where do you want the mic at?
Right. It was up here.
That's fine for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't move it.
It worked for him.
Ready? Okay. First camera is speeding. And so much shit in the way.
It's just gonna play the
Both
intro.
cameras are speeding.
It's gonna play the intro first.
Okay.
Right.
20 minutes. Let me start a timer.
No intro. Oh, okay. So, welcome everyone. Happy MLK Day. It's
Yay.
me, Allie, and John. No Nina today. We got her out in the field working on a special project, but she will be back with us next week. But we are still the committee. How you
Yes.
doing, John?
I'm doing all right.
You feeling better?
Feeling better.
You know, you was a little man down sick last time, right?
I was supposed to be here last week, and
Yeah.
I was not here.
Yeah,
last
I heard. Yeah, we wanted you to stay home.
Yeah, you definitely wanted
Yeah. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. And you know, my favorite topic, Micah Lands. We have our clue that we released on Wednesday. Let's see here. We had the police shield. It said here, we've all heard the complaints regarding the response time after dialing 911. Many are unaware that the Compton Campus PD is responsible for everything within a 1 mile radius of our schools. What contributing factors did Micah Ali play in the downsizing of our police force, thus causing the increased delay in response time? Now, there weren't any winners, but that's okay. But there were a lot of people, or actually quite a few people, that were shocked to find out that the campus PD is responsible for everything within a 1 mile radius. So that means if there's a traffic accident, if there's a active shooter on campus, if there's a fight, if you live around the corner and there's a domestic violence situation going on, if you are within a 1 mile radius of the school, then the campus PD is supposed to be the one that comes out in response to that.
And if you think about what that means, if you look at the Compton Unified School District, the most outlying schools, a mile out from that. So it's a pretty wide.
Yes.
It's a pretty wide area for them to cover.
Exactly. And, you know, most people think how, and I'm sure, because when I wrote it, it's like, it sounds kind of like a stretch. How are you going to blame a school board trustee for the response times of the campus PD? Well, that's what I'm here for, people, to lay it all out and explain it for you. So how that works is Chief Taylor, or Captain Taylor, I'm sorry, I don't know the vernacular, but the highest, level up, Taylor, they wanted him to downsize the campus PD. There was a size of 42, and they wanted him to cut it by 45%. He refused to due to safety, saying that absolutely
Right.
not, which completely makes sense. We have like 36 schools, and if we have 42 officers, as it is, we're already working on bare bones minimum. So he refused to, but as soon as he retired, they got someone else to come in that is not qualified, but I'll get into that next week. There's enough this week. But they brought him, so this Wu is his name, WU. They brought him in and they had him do the dirty work. They had him cut the budget, cut the staff from 42 to 19. Now, my math is horrible. However, that's more than 45%.
It's actually more than 50%. I think it's about 54-ish.
Yeah. So
percent.
yeah.
So suffice it to say, it's more than half.
Right. So they went and they found Wu and they were able to push that even further. So what I actually met with several officers from our campus PD, and because of retaliation and all these other things, they didn't want to come on the show, which I completely understand. However, they did provide me with some receipts. I have their logs, and if we could, so we'll pull those up for you. And the logs actually show just there's actually the log he sent me was about 27 pages long. I shared it with our group, and just it says, due to the directive of not replacing any department staff, I work as a dispatcher. And then it's just several days of this entry. Just I worked as a dispatcher due to directive of not replacing any department staff. So when he this is an officer. He's also having to be the dispatcher. So if a person, they would only schedule one person to work. And if that one person got sick or an emergency or anything like that happened and had to call out, or if they worked too many hours and couldn't work anymore because they could not be paid that overtime, then the officer would be left to work alone. So when you, the resident, the community member, calls 911 and it gets routed to the proper place, which is Campus PD, if you are in that radius, this officer has to answer the phone, dispatch it to himself, go out into the fields, and then handle the incident. Now, while he's out doing that, another call comes in, a domestic violence situation. And now that phone, I'm told, is left ringing. It may get routed back, but that is in terms, people, how Mike Ali has a direct hand in the downsizing of our police force. And if I didn't mention it before, bringing Wu in was at the directive of Mike Ali and those, on the school board.
It's interesting. Now, one of the things that I don't quite understand is the fact that Compton contracts with the LA Sheriff's Office, right, for policing the community. And understanding that this has happened now, where the Compton school police, let's call it, the campus police, have been reduced in numbers by such a drastic amount. Where's the coordination? Because that domestic violence call that you talk about, is that really a campus police guy's job, especially when, perhaps the other thing that he's handling is it actually has directly to do with students, student safety, school safety, etc.?
You know what, it's actually, I'm glad you bring that up, because I have in his notes here where he actually states that no other assistance was available due to the do not hire help or replacement personnel. This is the second incident that we, the Compton School Police, responded to domestic violence on or near district site or function. Tonight is an example of no matter whether I'm working alone or have an officer working with me, I'm going to respond putting my own safety aside to rescue and protect others in need. So, yeah, it seems to like it does fall in their scope.
And these are non-school related disturbances, let's call it.
Absolutely, because if it happens within a 1 mile radius, Campus PD, which was shocking to me, they are the ones that need to respond. So now, like I said, you have officers going out. There's several, going through these logs it's pretty interesting.
Right.
And I'm able to see how many times he's going out to these different calls where I'm like, whoa, it's like something could have gotten out of hand. It really, his safety is, at risk because
Sure.
and then who is to find out that he is harmed? He dispatched the call to himself. He went out there by himself. And if something happens.
What happens if he says, officer down?
Exactly.
He's actually,
Back up.
what's he gonna call himself?
Exactly.
So what does the LA sheriff do? I mean, let's just step back for a second. If the Compton school police have everything within a 1 mile radius
Mhm.
of each school,
And we have 36 schools.
and you have 36 schools, it's pretty well saturated.
Right.
So there is probably even some overlap there.
Oh, definitely.
So
There'd have to be.
What does the LA sheriff do?
That's a good
I mean,
question.
and how do they work?
And how they work together, I'm not sure at all. I'm not
Maybe
even gonna
maybe that's for a
pretend.
different time.
Didn't do that much research, just enough to get me through today.
But it's a question.
Definitely a question mark to see because, like you said, if the campus PD is responsible for everything within a 1 mile radius, Compton is only 10-mile radius long, wide, city or however that's
Right.
said.
And the force is understaffed.
Right, and the force is
I mean-
understaffed. And it's funny because speaking of understaffed force, I kind of wonder like how they went about choosing which officers to keep and which ones to let go of. And I say that because we have an officer on the campus PD that was actually accused of some pretty heinous charges or allegations, as you like to call them. And he was fired from Maywood. They disbanded completely. There is no Maywood PD anymore. It's not necessarily as a result of this
But
case.
but
However,
the
it
case
was
contributed.
it had to
Certainly
have
did, certainly
because
did.
the RICO case was filed in 2008. It closed in 2010. Maywood also closed its doors in 2010. So by deductive reasoning, I would go ahead and say that was a very large contributing factor. But what are your thoughts on that? Because for an officer to be fired from Maywood and then Compton goes and hires them.
Mhm.
Now, before I even go into the charges exactly, I just feel like if another police department fired you because of your conduct, why are we picking you up to begin with?
Well, I think this is a problem that is not unique to the Compton Police Department. I've heard about and I've read about this kind of thing happening pretty much all over, where you have a police officer who is let go, fired,
Mhm.
for impropriety, incompetence, corruption, whatever, and then winds up being hired in a different police force. And you kind of scratch your head and wonder, what was the thought process?
Oh
What
yeah,
was
like
the
those
vetting
ones
process?
that like kill a black unarmed person and then they go and transfer to another county and they get hired.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's things like that where you start thinking, now, granted, there are probably some officers, just like with any employment situation, where they're fired and maybe they were fired inappropriately,
Mhm.
okay? But before you hire them, especially in such a critical public safety kind of position where
Mhm.
they're interacting directly with the public and then protecting them,
Mhm.
when they've been accused of wrongdoing against that very public that they're supposed to be protecting, you have to wonder.
Yeah, you definitely have to wonder because let me just go into the facts of the case because I like to just go straight to the receipt. What exactly are we talking about here? So, on or about February 5th, 2007, Officer Morello wrongfully harassed, detained, arrested, assaulted, battered, threatened with malicious prosecution, searched, and sexually assaulted Vanessa Garcia and Shannon Board. Morello also threatened to plant drugs on plaintiffs and take them to jail if they complained about his conduct. Officer Morello called Miss Garcia on the telephone and told her he wanted to have sex with her and that he was coming over with beer. He said she had to participate or he would take her to jail. Officer Murillo drove by Ms. Garcia's home 2 to 3 times a day after that and repeatedly told him that he would take her and Miss Board to jail. Subsequently, Murillo did bring beer to Miss Garcia's home and groped Miss Board's breast and grabbed Miss Garcia's crotch when they stood near his police car. The next day, Murillo stopped by Miss Garcia, had her place her hands behind her back, and put his hand down her pants, touching her buttocks and her vagina. Miss Board witnessed this from inside. Now, there's plenty more that goes on, but do I really need to? Because, I mean, this is absolutely disgusting.
Right.
One, for this to happen to anybody, but to, on top of that, to know that you have this man policing our children.
Right. Now, just to be clear, these are the allegations in the complaint. What you just read are what the plaintiffs
Are
alleged
alleging.
this officer did. But that complaint goes way, way further than that, because it addresses what was sort of a conduct within the police department that was actually alleging the RICO statutes as a sort of a criminal enterprise, if you will, or a corrupt enterprise, and that it wasn't just only this police officer, but also his supervisors. So let's call it the sergeant or the
Right.
lieutenants or the police chief or whoever.
There were other individuals
There
that
were-
were aware
there
that
was
they would cover
much
it
more
up.
going
And there was
on.
other things going on. They weren't just grabbing people by the pussy. They had a lot of other stuff going on. This trust me, they're not gonna shut down a whole police department because of
Right.
one
This-
guy.
This is a classic case of certainly this individual being alleged to be abusing his power as a police officer.
Right.
At a minimum. And obviously there's sexual assault going on there, which is, never appropriate. But it goes beyond that to the police force in general.
But the thing is, we have to now and that's all well and good, but we want to bring this back to is he is on the Compton campus police department as we
Right.
speak.
Right, so at some point, this case, as most of these do, gets settled, right?
Which they did.
And I'm sure there was a bunch of money paid out.
Right.
And then, subsequent to that, or in the process of that, part of the settlement may have been, this officer's gotta go. Or
the whole police department gotta go.
The police guys, like you guys, you have to go. So
Right.
he's gone. At
Right.
some point, call it maybe around 2010, or maybe we don't have the exact date when he left the force, he was fired.
Right.
Okay, so he left the police force. And then at some point, he applies for a job, maybe at other police forces, but eventually winds up at the Compton Police Department.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's a problem. Because our board of trustees, we should be able to trust that they're going to do their due diligence when it comes to hiring individuals. I put in this individual's last name and police officer, and the case came up in several different forms. So if I did that in a simple Google search, our human resources had to do a background check at the bare minimum.
Right.
And so you can't tell me that they weren't aware of this.
Well, who does it for the police force, for the campus police or the school police? Do they have their own? Is it part of Compton Unified School District? Is it their human resources that does it? I'm not sure, I don't know. But it's difficult, it's hard to believe that they didn't know.
No, because we know they did. Just like proof that I even forget the woman's name, the principal that we hired at over Kelly Elementary that was under a federal investigation, and she got taken out in handcuffs here. They know about these things.
Well, that's it. And
And
if they
it's
didn't,
just
shame
pure
on you for not
negligence.
knowing this. How can you not know this?
Exactly. Exactly. Either way, if you didn't know, shame on you. If you did know, double shame on you. So either way it goes, you're incompetent. It's time for you to go, and it's subsequently as well as time for us to take a break.
We'll be right back. Good job.
High School, man. We are about to teach these young men how to tie ties. We got a whole bunch of men coming out here to support. The sheriff department is there holding it down, man. Students, staff, everybody here, man. They'll have a good time, man. And holding it down for the men in the streets.
Yes.
How did you know that it was a need for these guys to know how to tie ties?
Because, you know what, we knew a lot of young men who never knew how to tie ties, and then we're in the hip-hop generation now, so everybody kind of wear tennis shoes and t-shirts, and so I was like, this is a good way for us to interact. Like, we can teach how to tie a tie, so when you have your wedding, or you're going to somewhere nice, you'll know how to knot up.
Hub Radio.
Cell Shade Shop is an online boutique located in South Los Angeles, specializing in trendy eyewear fashion for men and women, as well as coordinating cell phone cases and accessories. Cell Shade services the community with chic sunglasses and cases through our online shop. For trendy eyewear and cell phone accessories at affordable prices, log on to www.cellshadeshop.com and follow us on Instagram at Cellshade Shop.
Welcome back, welcome back. It's John and Allie. Allie and John,
Allie and John.
however you want to say it. We are the committee, and we are here with the Compton City Attorney, Damon Brown. Thank you so much for coming. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome.
Awesome. So, you're a Comptonite now.
I am.
When'd you get here?
Got here in the summer,
Mhm.
and I have been here ever since. My history with the city is long. My father grew up in Compton. My grandparents came here from Texas with my great-grandparents back in the 50s and settled here in Compton. So my whole life growing up was here with my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, everyone here in the city.
Okay, that's
Cool.
good. So you got your roots in
I
here
do have my
somewhere.
roots,
Okay, he's not a full-fledged carpetbagger, guys. Give him a little break. You know, he's familiar. He's been hood adjacent.
Adjacent. I'm aware of those credentials well.
Right. So, so how has it been? How has the transition been? I mean, you had huge shoes to fill. You know, we had Craig Cornwell as our city attorney for many years. Prior to him, we had LeGrand Clegg as our city attorney many years. It's something, unlike the city manager position, we don't pass that around likely. So how does it feel being in the position? How are the residents treating you?
So it's a great honor for me to be in this role, to have the trust at this point of the council who appointed me, and I'm working to earn the trust of the residents.
Okay, because I thought you were saying trust of the people, because you ain't got that yet.
I'm
Okay.
We need to earn that one.
and that's exactly
I was like, who
what
trust you got?
That's exactly what I'm doing now, is trying to be more familiar and to open myself up my office so that people can get to know me, get to know what the office is doing. Big shoes to fill for sure. I do know LeGrand. I've worked with Craig. When he was city attorney, my firm was outside counsel for the city of Compton, so I had about 4 years of working on Compton matters with the city attorney in the office. So it was a very familiar transition once I came into full-time employment, all the staff, everyone that I've known over the years. And so that part was an easy transition. But it is very different working in an in-house law department for the government as opposed to private practice, which my 15 years of practice has been exclusively in private practice.
And as outside counsel, you would have been given certain types of cases, I would guess.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Now you're in all.
Any and everything that comes through the door.
Whether you like it or not.
That's correct.
So is it because I remember when you first accepted the position and you came to a meeting, I forget who ran I know it was Gilda who was over the meeting, and you came with your son, you introduced yourself, and it was everything, it was awesome. And you also opened yourself up and, office hours, emails, phone numbers, all that, which I thought it was a great start. So, have there been any challenges other than the unfamiliarity?
I think every day is a challenge to try to do what's right for the city, to try to tackle some long existing problems and challenges, to resolve the new ones that pop up from time to time. In terms of resident engagement, that's been one of the highlights of the job, is getting to hear from the residents, to see, because again, their tenure oftentimes is much longer than mine has been as a resident of the city. So I get to learn. I don't come to the position assuming that I know everything and can fix every problem. So for me, it's good to be able to hear the feedback of people, things that they've been grappling with for a long time, and ways that we can work together to try to resolve some of the issues. So it's often that I do have meetings with residents in my office. I have an open door policy where if I'm not in a meeting and I'm in my office and a resident shows up and says they want to talk to me, then we go into the conference room and we hear and talk about whatever it is that's on their mind. So I just, from that perspective, there hasn't really been any challenge. Just, again, trying to think creatively and trying to work cooperatively with everyone.
So what are you hearing when those residents come to see you? What are the issues? What are the problems that they see? Why are they coming to talk with you?
I think a lot of times, everything is so compartmentalized within the city. So a lot of times residents are coming to wanting the ear of someone in city government. So it isn't necessarily
not even necessarily
Let's talk
your
to
job.
Let's talk to the
Right.
guy. He doesn't
But
know
since
any
you're the
better
one
than-
answering the door.
I've answered the door. They've caught me in the hallway. They've caught me on the street. Whatever it is, even if it's something that I myself am not responsible for handling, I try to talk through the issue with whoever it is that's bringing it up. If it is something that I can do, or I can get back to them, even if it's just to get information, I try to do that. I think it's just everything that you probably are aware
That's
of. Potholes
awesome.
and,
Yes.
making
They
sure
come to you for parking tickets.
parking
They come-
tickets. I literally get the full gamut of the concerns of the community. And so again, if it's not something that I personally am responsible for, I just try to make sure that they get some answer, some direction, something that's going to be
Right,
helpful.
so you're gonna facilitate.
As you're
It's not my department.
You're the directory.
And
Got it.
and my staff also knows that is not the tagline to give when somebody calls or comes in. So
That's amazing. That's awesome. So you said that 6 months ago, and 6 months of Compton residents coming to your door and holding you to your word, and you are still keeping that door wide open. We love it. There's a major change in the city, and it started with the city manager, the city attorney. No, sorry. It started off with the getting Gina out of that seat and getting Michelle in. And from that, it's just been an awesome trend. So we love the pleasantries. So now we do have a couple questions for you. And thank you, John, for being so prepared and printing these out for us.
Now all we have to do is read them.
Right.
So you want me to go first? Or you want to
Well,
go
you
first?
got question 1, so why
I got
not?
Jeez.
He's numbered them.
Okay. So let's talk about something that I know is on a lot of people's minds, and that's illegal weed dispensaries.
sure.
They just seem to pop up, right? It's like whack-a-mole. You knock one down, and one pops up over there, or you knock one down, and maybe 2 show up. Can you give us an idea? How many are there? Not an exact inventory, but just a rough number. What's the process that you go through? And are there any creative ideas that you have to try to expedite the process?
Sure. That's a great
Because
question.
they're flaunting the inefficiencies of government, effectively, right?
So that is a very good question. I think it was the last meeting that we had city council meeting in December. I provided an update to residents on the marijuana dispensaries. My last, I recall, there's somewhere between 17 and 20 active dispensaries in the city. That we are aware of. A lot of times we get our information from the sheriff's department, from residents who see activity happening. Unfortunately, the process is much more complicated than what I think people understand. It makes sense that because we know where they are, we should be able to go in and shut them down.
Right.
But because of this little thing in the law called due process, there is a process.
That's
And
called red tape.
it oftentimes can be red tape.
And the feds is not an option.
No, because this is a matter of local enforcement. So the feds aren't coming in to shut down the dispensaries. But
so what are we doing then? Like, are we going to make them legal? Are we going to get legal dispensaries? Because if they're going to be here, my thing is this: if they're going to be here, then they need. That's a lot of revenue that could be coming into the city. So if we can't even shut these dispensaries down, because dispensaries have been in Compton at this rate, at this number, is out for I don't know how long. Let's just say the last 5 years, how much revenue could the city have had since they're here anyway?
Now, I'm not willing to make that leap because I'm not for the legal dispensary, but yeah, I guess the issue is either we're able to deal with them somewhat efficiently or we're not.
so I think
Legal or legalize or not, that's where we're at.
so. If it's an issue of legalization, that's something that the residents have to decide. And so far, they've decided they don't want them.
Even though they're still, no,
Overwhelmingly.
they're saying they don't want the money because they're here. They've been here. They're not going anywhere. So the residents are saying, no, we're going to still say we don't want you here, even though you're going to be here, and no, we don't want your money. Please tell me, how much sense does that make?
Well, at this point, that's what it is. And the expectation is that we would be responsible for maintaining that ordinance that keeps them illegal in the city.
So is this more like an unlawful detainer kind of situation, or?
It's not an unlawful detainer. What's happening is a lot of times you have the property owners who are leasing out space to the folks who are running these illegal dispensaries, and they're turning a blind eye to what's going on. So we have to address that issue. Then we have the issue of getting warrants to be able to go into the property, and as of this point, it has been difficult working with the sheriff's. It hasn't been difficult working with the sheriff's department, but the process in which we work with the sheriff's department is difficult to keep them closed. What's often happening when you talked about the game of whack-a-mole, not only are others popping up, the same one is opening within hours of being shut down. And because we don't have the legal right at this point to address that in a way that's going to be efficient, we do have to be creative. So I don't want to give away all of the tools of the toolkit, but that's been part of the challenge of what I have come into the position to do, is to try to work to figure out a way that we can act as a better deterrent for folks coming into the city, and for folks once they get shut down, what those penalties would be for opening back up.
Okay, and then let's just go the other route. If we make them legal in the city, right? How would it be difficult to collect revenue from them, or would that be a difficult process? Would they be as much of a headache?
Well, my understanding from those cities that have legalized marijuana is that there is obviously a tax revenue benefit for them being in this city. You tend not to have the violence that happens at some of the illegal dispensaries. I know we just had a shooting not too long ago at one of the dispensaries in the city. You know, if this is regulated during business hours and it's a legitimate business, you don't often find these kinds of situations happening in a legal dispensary. So there are obviously benefits to having legalized marijuana in the city.
So there's revenue.
There is
But
revenue.
there's also cost.
There are costs, and obviously with law enforcement is also required, even when it's legalized. That doesn't become a non-factor. It just is a different type of activity that they'll be responsible for.
So we just need to pick a side. All right, legalize marijuana. Got it. Step 2, question 2. What is your responsibility if the city charter is not being followed?
If the city charter is not being followed, so part of my job is to deal with compliance, which would include the city charter, and making sure that the actions that the council is taking don't violate provisions of the charter. I think the responsibility of following the charter, though, is everyone's responsibility. So city manager's office, city treasurer's office, all departments within the city, and residents, when they believe that something is contrary to what the charter says, bringing it to the attention of their elected officials and making sure that we're on the same path. One of the things that my office does is when we review different items that come before council, is we do check to make sure that what we're doing, we're following our own procedures. I think there's a general kind of misunderstanding about the way that a charter city operates. I think people think, oh, we're a charter city, we can do whatever we want. That's not the case. General law cities, charter cities still have to follow certain rules, but a charter city has to make sure that it is given the leeway to come up with its own rules that are of strictly concern of Compton residents and the city of Compton. And then there are some rules that the legislature or the courts will extend to charter cities, but generally we kind of can set rules that relate to things that only concern the city, and can make and can decide based on what the residents and what elected officials say as to how we'll move forward.
Example, I know there's been some talk about creating a citizens commission to talk about what potential changes there could be to the charter.
Yes.
But the charter doesn't say that, right? The charter basically says that the commission is developed not arbitrarily by the city council, I'm remembering it right, but rather by election of commissioners that are approved by the city council afterward, or something along those lines. So there are some people that go, well, wait a minute, you guys are going rogue on this. And there are others, I happen to be one of them, that thinks otherwise.
Right. So I think part of it is an issue of nomenclature and understanding. There is a mechanism that the city council can basically turn over their authority to, vote on charter amendments that will go on the ballot to a commission. That is not what we have here. What we have here is an advisory committee that they are authorized to set up, which makes recommendations to the council. And then the council takes those recommendations and they vote and decide what goes on the ballot. They can also add stuff to that if they would like.
And they can also ignore all of
They
it.
can reject it all.
Just
right.
say, no, this
purely
is
an
not where we
advisory-
need to be going.
Correct. It's purely an advisory committee. So they have not turned over their authority to that. There's not been some illicit commission developed that they don't have the authority to do. It's strictly an advisory committee.
Right.
The point is that they do want the voices of the community to be made known to them so that they can propose changes. The residents themselves, even outside of this committee, can still make changes to the charter via the ballot by the signature process and all of that outside of this advisory committee if they choose to do that as well.
It sounds, no offense, this is pretty dull information, right? And let's just be frank. What motivated you to leave your private practice and come to Compton and talk civil codes? Because growing up my entire life, even through college, I wanted to be a lawyer. It was definitely not to talk about this kind of stuff. So what were you doing before? Because I know it had to be way more interesting than that. And why did you come to Compton?
It actually wasn't more interesting.
It wasn't?
It was not.
Goodness.
So my practice before was exclusively in the labor and employment space. I defended employers in labor and employment disputes. So whether it was
That's pretty.
in
that
court-
probably get kind of juicy though.
Employment matters are they're the soap operas at work.
That's what I'm
Everything
saying.
that
They're
happens
probably
at
kind of
work,
good.
the subject matter was never a dull case.
But you're defending, so you're like, but.
I'm defending, but I'm also counseling and telling folks how to do things correct. So the fun part about this job to me is the variety of matters. So I'm still doing employment matters because we have an employment force within the city. I'm still handling cases, managing outside counsel. I've got a department of lawyers. We're handling the cases that we have. But now I'm dealing with real estate and personal injury and workers' comp and, civil matters that are all different. So for me, it was an opportunity to really get a broader, a lot more on my plate, the diversity on my plate. So I don't have to deal with charter stuff all day. That's one thing that I do, and then I move on to something else.
You're like, yay! That gives me 15 minutes to. That's what you do on your breaks. How many people do you have working in your department?
So we currently have 5 lawyers. We're going to start a recruitment for a 6th. We have 2 paralegals, and then we have a handful of staff, maybe about another 5 or 6 staff, our workers' comp administrator, our risk manager, and our claims techs and examiners.
Right.
So I think our total staff in the department is about 12 or 13.
Okay, that's not bad. So, other than that, is there anything that you would like the residents to know about you, other than the fact that you have a wide open door policy?
I want, one of the things that I would like for residents to do, and actually I was thinking about maybe talking to some of my colleagues about having sort of an open house at City Hall, because I think that folks don't always know what folks do, and so when things come up, for example, I heard at city council meetings when I've asked for another law firm to come on our panel. Whoa, why do you need another law firm? And you've got attorneys in there, and you've already got lawyers. And I think, if people can get an opportunity to see the types of things that come through the office, what resources we're working with, then it gives them a better understanding when items come before city council that they can say, okay, I now have at least some point of reference to know, why this is happening this way. And so my thing is I just would like to continue to keep dialogue going. I don't think that council meeting is always the right forum for, it doesn't present itself for us to have a dialogue. So I just really, I'm serious when I say I would like for folks to reach out and to inquire and to have conversations so that they can fully understand how their city's operating.
We definitely thank you for that. I absolutely agree. I think that if people were more informed, the process will be a lot smoother. It'll be a lot less of a bumpy ride. So I want to thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You were very informative. I'm sorry for calling, the charter dull. People don't hate me for it.
I would say, I'm not going to take offense to that, but other people, some people.
But it's boring. It is what it is.
I like that discussion. For the record.
All right, so we thank you again for coming, and we'll take a quick break.
Excellent.
Get your boat dumped. Don't come and dump it anywhere. There's a number for it.
Hey, can't just talk shit online all the time. Sometimes you gotta put your money where your mouth is. Was that, y'all ready? Okay. I just went to Celeb before, so it was like, cool. What's going down? What's going down, y'all? It's your girl, JV. We're here on Rosecrans and Rose, underneath the Rosecrans Bridge, cleaning it up, making sure Compton is beautified. We got the camp here in collaboration with Compton Initiative, and we're just doing good. Y'all make some noise for yourselves. Keep Compton clean.
What's going on, big dog?
Hey, how you doing, brother?
What we doing?
Just beautifying Compton, man. Picking up, cleaning up, making it look good.
Right.
I'm representing for the people, y'all.
That's
Compton
right.
activists.
That's right.
Go out and support Chris Bailey's store at Santa Fe in Compton.
Come a celebrity, because everybody's somebody in the city of Compton.
I got nothing for you. I'm still learning this game.
Just do it.
How you doing? You already smiling automatically. What's going on?
Just having fun, finishing things off. It's been a blessed day.
Yes, it has been. It's been a beautiful day in Compton. So they just painted this house here.
Welcome back. Welcome back. It's John and Allie holding it down without Nina closing us out here. So we just had a couple announcements. We have voting, of course, March 3rd. There's a lot of things coming up. We have Senate, Assembly, school board. So make sure you checking that out. Voter sample ballots are going out the first, second week of February. Voting polls are open now for about 11 days. So for March 3rd and 11 days prior to that, you are able to vote. But that also means that there are more chances for corruption. So be mindful, be vigilant when your absentee ballot gets in the mail. You can give it to someone else, but the polls are open. I would say just take it down yourself. There's way too much at stake for our city, for our children, to just hand your ballots off to anybody. But on a lighter note, we've got a new show on Thursday with my girl Jasmine and her show Uncomfortable Conversations. Thursday. That's going to be really interesting. Again, I love uncomfortable conversations, so I can't wait. I'm looking forward to that. You look like you like uncomfortable conversations, John. No?
I'm okay with uncomfortable conversations.
Okay. We like
I'm happy
uncomfortable
to have
conversations. And we like Jasmine. So we're going to be tuning in, and we hope you are too. But that's all we have. We're working out pretty light. Wednesday, we're going to be dropping another clue on the committee page. So we'll see what's coming up next with Michael Land. John, you had something
Real
else?
quick on voting. If you're not registered, you have to register. If you're not sure, check. You can always just re-register, but it's important that you register. And I believe it's right around the 18th of February. Don't quote me on the date, but it's middle of February time. That's the deadline to be able to register to vote. Register if you're not registered, and in all cases, vote.
Oh,
Vote.
yes, absolutely. We actually have, I know one of our frontline members, Mary Lou, she was out today and on Sunday out there walking, getting people registered to vote, promoting and walking for Greg Pitts. So good luck to him in his race. Good luck to Sandra Moss and, of course, Anthony Perry, because those elections are going to be very pivotal for our school board. And we look forward to that, to your voter participation. Anything else?
That's it.
We're it? All right. So this is it. We are the committee, and we will see you guys next week.
Take care.